Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Linton here, the Business Growth Network, where we bring together some of the UK's influencers, speakers, and real business engagers. But today we've got someone a little bit different. We've got Cate Codey, who's a local councillor for Tewkesbury Borough and Town, and is really looking to go to the next stages, which is the county councillor's role in Gloucestershire. And the reason I brought Cate along is because I think it's important for businesses to really get an understanding what's happening in our local community and what the local council is doing for us, especially here in Gloucestershire. Well, no, I'm not here today, I'm in Birmingham. But ultimately, Cate, welcome.
Thank you very much. I guess you can hear me, there's no mute or anything.
No, absolutely, you're fine, you're fine. So my first question, and I thought about this because I dare say people my age don't necessarily not go to the polls. We are pretty drilled into us that it's a right, it's democracy, and we should go to vote. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who just don't vote. So the first question is, why should people go to the polls, especially local elections like this? Why should they bother?
Well, I think for me, women and men died to get the vote. So that's the main reason that I go to the polls. And it's not that long ago that we didn't have these rights. Aside from that, we won't get the change we so desperately need unless people vote. And one vote might not feel like much, but seats can actually be lost on one vote. So every single vote does count. And a little story about that, somewhere up north, the Greens and Labour tied in a local election. And they did various recounts and various over and over again. And they were tied. And in the end, they had to do a coin toss. So it really, really can come down to one vote. And also, I think I understand the apathy. I understand that people feel it doesn't always make a difference, but it does. It did here in Tewkesbury. In 2019, I was elected as the first Green on the Borough Council, made history, and people said it couldn't be done, but it did. And I actually received more than 50% more votes than the other four runners. And just finally on that, I'd like to say that in this country, not enough people vote. And I think that's really sad. I think it's a shame. Especially as given, many other countries around the world, people would love to be able to vote and they simply cannot. So I think we need a lot of education, and I think we need to charge people up and tell them why it's really exciting to vote.
Fantastic. I do like that because ultimately, I think you touched there that in the north it was such a close battle between yourselves, the Green Party, and Labour. And often people would say, well, little old you or little old party, the Green Party, is not one of the main, three, is it? And, so what difference can you make, with that whole change?
Nationally, actually, we are now polling as the third party, so things can change. It's a little bit different nationally as well to local elections. So national, we have first past the post. We're one of the few countries left that has that, which is very sad as well. But local elections are different, and Greens do get elected. We had more wins than ever before in our borough elections in 2019. And obviously, the Green topic, it's just in everybody's, it's really there at the forefront at the moment for people and for businesses, actually. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But the difference I can make, well, one of the differences, we need more women in politics. And currently at Gloucestershire County Council, there are 53 seats. And currently only 10 of them are taken by women. And in fact, Gloucestershire has one of the lowest representations for women in the country. But I'd like to turn the question around and say, well, what difference would it make if we have one more Conservative here? Whereas just one Green in the room can make an enormous difference. And at Borough, we have things like the declaration of an emergency, climate emergency now, and a plan. We're looking at various aspects of transport, energy, and waste. We also have the borough plan now, as one of its 6 priorities and objectives, now has sustainable environment. It didn't have that before. It had a green on the borough, and where greens lead, others follow. So it's very different for a green in the room. You have one, and suddenly everybody is sort of saying, "Oh, yes, we must do this, we must do that," because they know they've got to cover the agenda. But green politics isn't just about the environment, and that's quite a thing that people get confused about. But we have policies for everything. And also, what difference can I make? I'm very experienced. I went self-employed in 2003, and I've been a singer, band leader, and events organizer since then. I worked, a lot of people don't realise this, but I did work at a technology company as well, and I was on the team working for the business standard ISO 14001. So I've got all sorts of information that I can give to businesses and help them and show them actually how they can grow and make money and be more sustainable and just do everything in the right direction. And also, I am a doer. I'm very, very active. I sit on lots of different boards and trusts and all sorts of different hats, should we say.
I like that because obviously when I'm thinking about, especially where we are in Gloucestershire, it is heavily conservative. We don't really get much in the way of opposition from Labour. So yes, I think it's great to see, we have a little bit of diversity, if you like, sitting on that seat from a different perspective from the Green side of things. But businesses as a whole would probably just be working towards, what are you going to do for them? There's whole policy we know, and everything is now being pushed on climate change, being pushed on that we need to get out of older cars into newer cars and take out electric vehicles and all the rest of it. But they're not cheap. And for small businesses to do that, that's a huge cost for them to do that. So what is the incentives and what can be done locally to encourage businesses to be more green?
Okay, well, this was quite interesting because I did hear a snippet of an interview from somebody very senior in one of the largest global corporations. I'm not going to name them for that reason. But they were saying that there's a bit of a myth about how green things can cost so much, and that they found with their products and services that actually the ones they've invested in changing them and making them green, they have absolutely taken off and they are making them more money. So there's a bit of a myth. And when I worked at the technology site, for example, I saved them a fortune, and we turned all sorts of things around. We looked at transport, we looked at energy, we looked at packaging. We saved 1.5 million sheets of paper in the first year alone. So these sorts of things can bring costs down. Now, sometimes there are things that you need to pay a little bit more money for, but by doing other things, you'll save. And in the end, the whole point of sustainability is that you should be reusing, and these sorts of things will save you money. So we need to talk to each individual business, really. Depends on the business, of course, whether they're product services, whether they deal with local people or nationally or globally. Every company is different. But the tech company was interesting because we were about 250 on site, but it also had a global presence. So I did presentations and things like that in London. But we had certain businesses, particularly in Scandinavia, that wouldn't work until we got the business standard, the ISO 14001. So it was actually very, very good for business. And a similar thing would be Plastic-Free Tewkesbury, which I'm heading and we're working with. And now we've started it. A lot of businesses are coming to us and saying, we'd like to be on board. What can we do to help? And I think businesses, we need to network like you're doing today. We need to work together, and I need to listen. I need to find out what businesses want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we take, for instance, the global pandemic of where we are right now, and it's been tough on a lot of businesses, and especially as we come emerging from this. But I suppose one of the advantage points is we're starting to see now, and they always say that once something has become repeated for a while, for a length of time, like it's been, and as I say, it seems to be a byproduct success of it all, with Zoom calls and video calls, which means that more and more people are doing less traveling and using this whole jump on a call, jump on their internet, jump on a Zoom call from their homes, as opposed to actually jumping in the car, driving 20, 30 minutes to a destination to meet up with like-minded businesses. Now, it doesn't do me so great wonders when I'm running a face-to-face networking event, but at the same time, it is going to be the future. So where do you feel that, businesses and policy making can really influence that going forward?
I think it's been very, very interesting, this pandemic, because there's been an awful lot of businesses who said we could never work from home. And actually, that's been proved different. And on the other side of things, we've learned that actually we do sometimes need that one-to-one, and we need human interaction, and that we can get zoomed out as well. So I think we have to look, businesses, individuals, we're all different, and some people love the working from home. It's more flexible, they can manage their families more, a lot more. That there's been studies about health, so somebody doesn't feel very well, but if they stay at home in the comfort of their own home, they can be a bit more comfortable, and they're more likely to continue working. Whereas if they go into work, they're going to spread the germs to everybody else, they're going to feel miserable. So I think it's about supporting the individuals that work within these businesses. And on the other side of that, I think we've learned that a lot of things where we feel we've got to drive or fly up and have meetings are perfectly adequate to be done on Zoom or whichever platform you want to use. So I think we need a massive rethink, and this would incorporate all sorts of other things like active travel and transport, etc., etc. If not so many people were moving around, then it would be easier for cyclists, or we could put smart buses on to actually look where we need still to go in, because manufacturing, for instance, you have to go into the building for that. But in that company, you could have IT services working from home. So you wouldn't have that massive rush hour and that heaviness and all the fumes and difficulties that go with it. And for many people that can't afford these changes, electric vehicles aren't cheap. And personally, I don't think we can't just change one thing for another. We do need to look at other angles. And a lot of people do want to cycle to work. And it depends on where you live, doesn't it? So if you're 2 hours from where you live, maybe you would do more Zoom meetings, etc. And if you're very local, maybe we can get the business on board to look at cycle schemes and car sharing and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose that brings to the point where the likes of Tewkesbury, especially with the commuter rails to Birmingham, to big cities like that, and Bristol. But the frustration I know from someone travelling on the train quite twice a week is the expense of it all, first of all. Yeah. Also, this whole element of the infrequency of the service from that station. So, for instance, I thought it was great news to see Worcester Parkway opening up, and I did park there today. But £4.50 for a car parking fee, then your train ticket, just because I couldn't rely on the service coming from Ashchurch to get me back from a late meeting that I'd have in the office. I don't want to travel, and I dare say business owners who do travel into big cities don't want to have to use their cars, especially as Birmingham, which I'm pleased to see, is going to that restrictive zone of entering cars of a certain age, and they're going to start charging you in the same way as they do London, and that is frustrating if you've got an older car like myself, because you need to make that leap into the next vehicle to get onto that list, and that's a cost in itself. But I prefer to be using public transport more. But my frustration with, and I'm sure it is for a lot of businesses in and around Gloucestershire, is local transport. Local transport is just not connected enough. What could you do and offer to get people more out their cars onto public transport? We'll come on to cycling. I like cycling. We'll come on to that in a minute.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. And what we as Greens push for all the time is smarter travel. We need investment. You're quite right. Public transport is unaffordable. It's not reliable. We don't have enough. Quite right. We live in Tewkesbury. We've got a station. That's brilliant. Really difficult to get to unless you've got a car. And the services just aren't running up and down there. We need to push for that. Definitely. I think as well that we need smart travel, that we have the technology nowadays, and we need to look at these connections. There are trains and buses, we see them all the time, running empty. And then you've got other trains and buses absolutely rammed, where we could have further services. We need investment, and we need to stop spending so much money on roads, because we at the moment the councils aren't even managing to cope with the roads that they have. They're not managing to keep them in order. And I think we really need to, if we had better public transport, more people would use it. So we do need to invest heavily and look at smart travel. I think it's really, really important. And then there's active travel, as you say. A good example of that at Ashchurch Station, there's nowhere to leave your bike if you've got a very expensive bike. How do you know it's going to be there when you get back? We need the lockers. There's nowhere to leave all your gear, your high-vis, wet weather wear, and helmet and all the rest of it that you don't necessarily want to take on a train. And it's
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I mean, I took a pride in buying a road bike, nearly 4 years ago, and it was quite expensive when I bought it. But the thought of leaving it at the train station to not take the car to the train station, it's great, you got free parking there. But I don't really want to do that. And I have walked on occasion, especially walking home from train at late at night type thing. And that's probably another sector we can touch on. But because it is a straight run from where I am, I'm just in Mitten outside outside the town, and it is a great walk. It's a 25-minute brisk walk. But when you're coming back of a night time, I would never advise a woman on her own to be coming back that way, especially. And even as a bloke, you're kind of feeling to yourself, this is not the most lit up way to come home, but it's the most direct route to get back to the house type thing. So, we need to, as you quite rightly point out, make it more accessible for for people to use their own transport, such as bikes, walking, but they want to feel safe. What could we do there? Because I've noticed that the lighting isn't great. This whole area, if you want to get people out of cars, you want to get, especially as the lighter nights come, we need to do more with that.
Absolutely. And I think we can do a lot of things, whether it's transport, energy, whatever, looking at other countries. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We don't have to say, how can we look at what other countries can do. Copenhagen, for example, 66% of all the local journeys are on foot or by bike. And the citizens are also ranking top for sort of health and happiness, because all of these things are linked. Now, if we had well-lit access, and we had lots of people, men, women, walking together at night, because if you watch a film or something from somewhere like Copenhagen or somewhere in Holland, people, women, men cycle on their own late at night. It's the thing that is done. That's the trouble here, is that we don't feel safe, so nobody does it. Now, if you were walking that journey and so were several others, and everybody got used to it, and it would just be like walking down the high street during the daytime. So we need to look at the sort of things that other people do. And also, there's also car sharing. We don't do enough of that in the country. It's quite common in other places to do that. And it brings the cost down, and it makes it fairer for those who can't afford a personal car as well.
Absolutely. I do often find if I am part of the station coming back, you feel like, I could offer someone a lift. But there's always this element, I dare say, with that, is because you're not used to doing that. You're thinking of your own safety, but you're also thinking of the safety of others, how they feel about you saying, you're going into town, jump in the car. But I do remember, coming back and waiting for the public transport, and a couple coming in from London. This is before the whole pandemic, and they were staying at the hotel at the top there, and we ended up getting a taxi in the end. That's how misconnected, if you like, the routes are with the local bus service and the train. And this needs to change. And I know, from my own investigations with it, it's always been about, we don't have enough people using the service for us to justify the stopping of that service there and all the rest of it. And then when they dropped Bromsgrove, it just made the prices massively out of control as to how much it would cost you to go to Birmingham. Yeah, because I get it, it's crossing over the boundaries, all the rest of it. But you go to Bristol and it's a fraction of the cost. So you could argue, why don't I set up a business in Bristol? But, you know, if you've already established in one city, for most businesses, or they find themselves, and we'll touch on the employment side of things in a minute, but if you find yourself that you've got a job or you can get a job, but you can't get a job locally, you're going to struggle then if you're relying on public transport. And that is a big issue if we want to do more with the environment.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is why we need more Greens in the room, because I'm the only person bringing up these sort of issues and people saying, well, we've got a train station. It doesn't mean they use it. I live 3 miles from the train station, and actually it's quicker to walk that 3 miles than to get a bus, because the bus goes into town, sits and waits for ages, and then the bus arrives and the train's gone, and it's just not joined up. We need a proper consultation. What do people actually want? You know, do people want to go off for 2 hours, or are they doing business, or are they visiting friends and attractions for the day? That we need a massive rethink and education on the whole. I mean, it is doable. I actually got rid of my car, gave up my car, I should say, a bit of an experiment to see if it would work. And that was about 3 years ago. And it isn't easy. I make it work, and it's not something that everybody can do. And I appreciate that. But my role, therefore, is to work out what the difficulties are and to push for these things. And, you know, we're more likely, the other thing at Gloucestershire County Council, of course, is that we're hoping for a group of Greens. So it won't just be a single voice there like it currently is at the borough. And a group of Greens will make a massive difference. We need to look at what people are doing in other countries. Yeah.
I do commend you for that, because the simple fact is, having 2 cars and trying to get rid of the one, I have thought about it many times, because we have to have the family car. The whole pandemic, I haven't really used the car at all, and it's an additional cost to do that. And I was often faced with criticism from people, and we'll touch on the issues with the high street and parking costs. But, you know, people say, well, why don't you walk? I do walk. Of course I walk. I don't necessarily drive into town for the sake of it. But the fact is, many people don't live as close or as able to walk in, and need to use the vehicle. So let's just touch on that a second with the high street, because I know that the Tewkesbury is bigger than just the high street. So this is all high streets within the borough and within Gloucestershire as a whole. They've massively been affected by the whole pandemic, in as much as they haven't been able to open. We've only seen something like 20% of pubs licenses being able to open due to the restrictions currently going on, the loss of revenue there. We don't utilise the river as well as we could, not just from a point of view, from a commercial point of view, which we could be doing, from that in as much as how it used to be, but also from a leisure point of view. You know, we don't utilise it enough. We're a tourist town, and yet people are not focusing on where the issues are. I only had a conversation with a tourist actually yesterday, while supporting a local business, just having a cup of coffee as they managed to open in their little courtyard on the high street, and they're sitting in the back there. And we were discussing about this, and I was saying, you know, we have the industries. I don't want to bash all the factories, the manufacturers, all the people on the industrial estate, but that seems to be the focus of the borough council, in my view, about how they get their money. And yet the car parking, and this is coming from, I believe, the county side of things, the revenue they make on car parks is still a massive issue. I know they've been suspended at the moment, and dare say it will be for a while, but when they are back in full swing, it just means people are more reluctant or less reluctant to go into the town, because they can go to a supermarket where it's free parking, and therefore they're not supporting local businesses, which will have an impact on shops, will have an impact on the way the high street looks, and will just mean that it'll be a no-go area for a lot of people.
Yeah, currently in Tewkesbury, the borough do have the car parks. It's not county, it's
right.
the borough, the revenue. Yeah, I mean, I just want to talk first about shopping locally, because I think, again, from the pandemic, we have all realised how fortunate we are in a town like this. We've had massive support from some of the greengrocers and milk deliveries, and the plastic-free shop has gone on and given free delivery to people. And I think communities, we've both ourselves been involved in helping in communities and really helping people who were vulnerable and shielding. And the community spirit has been amazing. And I think people really are desperate to pay back their high street and come back into town. There are lots of different issues with this. You yourself and I live about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from town. Obviously, I don't drive because I don't have a car anymore. I think, again, we need massive education and everything. Now, not people who are disabled. That's different, completely just different. And for some older people, now some older people are very fit and healthy and walk and keep themselves that way. For others, I understand that. So we do need car parking without a shadow of a doubt. But the re-education as well, because several times it's happened to me. I've gone out at the same time on my bike as a neighbour, and I have passed them before they're finding a place to park. And with a bike, you've always got a free space, etc., etc. Now, again, I know that it's not always possible if you've got something really heavy, etc., etc. But a lot more people, we could be persuading a lot more people to walk when it is possible. And just changing the mindset of the thing, rather than nipping into town to get that thing and then nipping into town the next day to get another, thinking, well, maybe I just do one journey, or talking to a neighbour, not at the moment because we can't car share, but when we can, I'm going into town, is there anything you need, or do you want to come with me? So that we are cutting these car journeys and allowing the people that actually need the spaces. Now, that's just the periphery. I'm talking about people in Mytton, Stonehills, Northway, Wheat Pieces. We can all get into the town relatively easily. And if we can't, a lot of people don't, because they have no idea that you can actually walk across the nature reserve, or there are footpaths or the cycle paths that can take you round out of the traffic into the town. So I keep saying, as a councillor, and this is something that I'm absolutely want to promote, our maps, tourism, the same, the river, you're absolutely right about that. We should be using it more. I think there are an awful lot of things we can do. And then I think if we had better bus services, again, people in Wheat Pieces, Northway, Prize Park, if it's too far for them to walk, they could get a bus because it would be more reliable and it would be more affordable. And we need to look more at public ownership of public transport, or having cooperatives and not-for-profits. So people are still paid, but it isn't that massive profit that is just basically eating away at everything that is good. It's not allowing people to use the facilities that they'd like to use because they're simply unaffordable. So I think that that we definitely need to come back into our towns, and then, you know, those spaces can be then left for the people that need them, people who are disabled, people who are older, people coming in from Breedon, those sorts of places where there aren't buses and it's not easy to get in. But I think we just need a lot more connections. And I think a lot of that, and we've come on to one of your other questions, is about younger people. If we get children walking to school and safely and together and cycling, and we've got car-free areas, they start doing it from the beginning. The number of times I hear kids, mum or dad saying, should we go out for a walk? You know, they don't really want to. The kids, yeah, we have to bottle that while they want to do it and get that very early. And then that will help in the journey towards adulthood and the change in what we do. And also being the change, showing people, you know, I've shown people where I live here, well, this is my route. I'll meet you. I'll take you in on the bike. Come with me. I can show you those routes. So it's about spreading that word, about connections. And it's about getting our businesses to promote that as well. We promote them, they promote us. This is how you can come in. And, you know, if I'm not going into town in a car, I don't have to think, oh, I've only got 2 hours, or I'm going to pay to park. I can take as long as I like to go into that coffee shop and spend my money there, or buy a gift for somebody here, or do whatever else I need to do.
Yeah, I like that. And you're absolutely right to bring in youth. Youth are a future. And if we do not, guide them, look out for them, give them the head start that they need, then we really are looking towards a failing society. With that in mind, you know, we know that the hardest hit is going to be our youth with employment. As much as the government is pushing kickstarts pushing apprenticeships, pushing business is to take on unskilled young people to train them up. There still isn't the energy there to do that, or there isn't the understanding, I suppose, in a better way for businesses to do that. I know from my own members within this organisation, a lot of them are using the Kickstart, but it's taking so long for the process to happen that, you know, some of the young people are either finding jobs themselves or those jobs are no longer there. What would you have, you know, put in place for employers to get involved in the community, to do more, but at the same time for youth having schemes where they can go off and learn from what's going on and what funding's out there to keep them out of mischief, to keep them out of trouble? We know it happens, and it happens to good kids, to all kids really, and we need to be there at grassroots to prevent that and give them guidance.
Absolutely. And I mean, this sort of comes back to voting as well, I think, and a lot of young people not voting. Now, I used to take my daughter specifically, you know, not when she was in school, I'd take her down to the voting and I'd say men and women died to get us the vote, and I'd tell her the history and tell her the story, and got her used to voting as I got her used to walking to school. And she doesn't have a car either. So it's exactly that sort of thing. We need to listen to them. We need community engagement, you know, we need to show them how local people can make a difference at a local level, and that gets them interested in our communities and interested in politics, and talking to them, listening to them. We definitely need more apprenticeships. We definitely need those who want to and need to go to university to be able to support them. I mean, I don't even have time today to go into what I think about students coming out with £50,000 worth of debt, and then, as you've quite rightly said, not necessarily even a job. That's horrific. Again, green jobs, sustainable energy. There's a massive sector out there of sustainable energy and business that we could be providing lots and lots and lots of jobs for. We need that engagement with people and with politics, with politicians. There are loads and loads of green jobs that we could offer these people, and also jobs that are meaningful. I think that's really important. A lot of people I know have a job that they hate, that isn't particularly important. We're going to be looking at different things with technology come in the future. You know, robots and whatever are going to be taking a lot of our jobs, and yet we've got other sectors where several decades ago, perhaps somebody elderly was cared for, and nowadays all of that sort of care is squeezed, and we don't appreciate and we don't pay people properly to look after older people and people in care. You know, those sorts of jobs should be vocations. It should be something that people aim to want to do. They love the company of others. They want to help people, you know, depending on the sector that you're interested in. So we've got technology, we've got health, we've got education. There are all sorts of things. And I think it does start with children. One of the best Zooms I did last year, which I was a little bit nervous about, I had to talk to the Scouts, and obviously they're on Zoom because they couldn't meet. And they had Democracy Week, and I did a mini sort of presentation about what the different levels of local government are, because a lot of adults don't know. So if the adults don't know, how are the children going to know? And I told them about the differences between the town and parish councils, and then the borough and district councils, and the county councils, and then Parliament above that. And they were so engaged, and they asked me brilliant questions, and they had brilliant ideas. Why are we doing this? Why can't we do that? Very simple things. And they were just so engaged. The Scout leader was, as I was, slightly concerned if they were going to be a little bit bored that evening. We actually ran out of time with the questions that they had. It was brilliant. And I find the same when I go in and talk to children in schools, and we talk about the sort of jobs that they might be looking at in the future. And we talk about the environment, we talk about plastic and all sorts of different things. And the feedback I get is terrific. I'll be talking to someone and they say, did you go into a school and talk to so-and-so? Because my friend's son came home from school and said, Mum, Dad, we've got to be doing this and we want to do that. And I want to walk to school. I want to do these things. And I think we need to engage with them. It shouldn't be, as you pointed out right at the beginning of this conversation, that people of a certain generation do vote, others don't, and why. And I think all these connections, answers, etc., they're all linked. you know, whether we do these things personally or in business, everything is linked.
Fantastic, Kate. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be right of me if I didn't give you an opportunity to say why people should be looking at you as a candidate for the county role, and what it is you feel you can offer over and above anybody else, because this is our future, and we want to encourage as many people as possible to turn out on the 6th of May. So why should they vote you?
Gosh, right, straight on the spot for that one then. There are basically in the division that I'm standing in, there are only 3 candidates. We have myself, and I'm the only woman. I already talked about that earlier. We need more women in politics. It's basically going to be between me and the Conservative. There is a Labour candidate, but traditionally they don't do very well in local elections around here. This is local politics, not national politics. And they're not running a campaign or anything like that. Why should people vote for me? Because people are voting for me. We have been round, we have worked hugely for this campaign. We've got a big team, we've got lots of people going out, talking to people. We've got voters who have only ever voted Conservative, or voters that vote Conservative at the general election, but they're saying, oh, this time I'm going to vote Green. I want something fresh, I want something different, I want somebody who listens, I want somebody who's going to help us solve all these huge questions and problems that we have in society at the moment. And a lot of them know that I'm already elected as a borough councillor, so Greens can be elected here, and the support is amazing and it's growing every day. And if people want change, then Green is the vote. We can do it here in Tewkesbury.
Why, thank you, Kate Codey. And that pretty much comes to the end of the show. But I would like to just thank Kate for taking time out of her diary to share with us some of the key issues that are going on in the region here. But I dare say they're not just here in the region, they're happening nationally. And on the 6th of May, we want to encourage as many people, whatever you're standing, to go out and vote. You know, because one vote, as you said earlier, Kate, can change the seats, can change everything. And we've seen that in the past, and we need a future that is bright. So thank you, Kate. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Linton, I'm the founder of the Business Growth Network. Each week, we run a number of meetings up and down the country to help businesses connect and grow through online meetings. I'd like to say we're very fitting with the green motion at the moment, especially, but we will continue with digital meetings, regardless as to how the future looks with face-to-face meetings. So our next speaker coming on with ourselves is in May, and we will be talking with John, who is ex-Forces, and he'll be sharing some of his insights as a local business person and what he's done and how he's dealt with the pandemic and really grown his business and helped others to grow. So if you like to get in tune, get involved. Next time, we're going to be meeting on the 3rd Tuesday of May, and you can join us then at 12 o'clock, where we have discussions like this all the time, from all topics, from business, politics, views, communities, everything that affects you, to help you run your business on a day-to-day basis and help you get ahead. So that's Mark Linton.